This tutorial will deal with the crewable T-72s and steel beasts, the T-72M, M1, and both models of the B1. The program that led to the T-72 started as an effort to find a low-cost and more reliable option than what the T-64 provided. At the time, the T-64 had major reliability issues, and it was many times more expensive than the next latest Soviet tank, the T-62. As a result, the Soviets developed the T-72, which proved to be more reliable than the T-64 and cheaper to produce, but it was somewhat less capable than the T-64. As with the T-64, the T-72 features a carousel to supply the autoloader for the main gun. There are 4 different T-72s that are crewable and steel beasts. The T-72M, which saw action in the 1982 Lebanon War, the Iran-Iraq War, Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and the Syrian Civil War. The T-72M1 features improved armor and smoke discharges located on the front of the turret. This variant saw combat in many of the same conflicts as the T-72M, along with the Indian intervention in the Sri Lankan Civil War, UNISAM, and in other wars and conflicts the world over. The T-72B1 Late was never exported outside of the USSR. Its main features are further improvements in turret armor and in an improved fire control system that allows for the use of a rudimentary form of computer-calculated lead. Unlike the T-72B, the B1 is a cheaper production model that has the gun-launched ATGM capability deleted from the vehicle. This version of the tank could have been seen in a potential Cold War gone hot scenario from the mid-80s on to post-Soviet conflicts in ex-USSR states. The T-72B1 Late is the same as the earlier version of the tank, with the only difference being the addition of Contact 1 ERA tiles, as in reality the tiles in SB provides added protection against heat ammunition. The T-72B1 has seen combat in at least one war, the decade-long Syrian Civil War, and possibly also in the Ukraine and the Donbass War, along with other conflicts in ex-USSR states. Gunnery on the T-72M to the T-72B1 is fairly straightforward. However, there are a few things that can catch out an inexperienced user. Firstly, there is Delta D. What Delta D does is subtract from the calculated distance to the last laser target based on how quickly the vehicle is moving, or more specifically, how fast the idler wheel is spinning. Theoretically, this provides an accurate range offset as the vehicle is on the assault. Delta D can be turned on and off via the panel under the gun sight. Another point that can complicate the use of the T-72 is the gunner's sight itself, specifically the laser rangefinder's aim point. The T-72 was not originally intended to have a laser rangefinder, but rather an optical rangefinder. This choice was soon changed so as to improve ease and cost of production due to the expense of the stereoscopic rangefinder that was used. However, due to Soviet production standards, the laser rangefinder does not sit perfectly in its housing. The laser rangefinder, as a result, is only roughly aligned coaxially to the main gun, with some mils of divergence between the aim point of the main gun and the aim point of the laser rangefinder itself. The solution to this is to mark the aim point of the laser rangefinder, which is a red circle located somewhere in the gunner's sight. Another limitation of the T-72's laser is that the gunner can only laser targets that are within 3,500 meters. Beyond this, the laser is unable to get a range, but the ballistic computer will still calculate to a range of 4,000 meters. Small consolation given that any engagements past 3,500 meters is effectively conducting windage as a result. The only way to get calculations past 3,500 meters is to use the Ranger wheel, which in Steel Beasts corresponds to the mouse wheel, or by using Shift and using the up and down arrow keys. The main difference between the T-72 and other vehicles in Steel Beasts is that the gunner is responsible for ammunition selection and reloading the gun. The T-72 uses an automatic loader that can be used by hitting the V key to insert a new shell into the main gun. Ammunition types can be selected via the insert, delete, and end keys, or via the ammunition selection rotary switch that is located to the lower left of the GPS. Ammunition types are O, which stands for Skalochno Fugnasi, or High Explosive Frag, B, which stands for Brojny Bojny, or APFSDS, and K, which stands for Kumulativny, or heat or hollow charge as our British friends would call it. Switching between these will give you both that ammunition type for the next reload and switch the ballistic computer to calculate super elevation for that ammunition. The other selections on the ammunition dial are not going to be discussed due to them not being simulated in Steel Beasts. Also to the left of the night sight, or gun launched ATGM sight, there is a counter for how many rounds of the index type are available. The ballistic computer does not calculate the super elevation needed for coax engagements. Instead, the gunner has to manually super elevate to the correct elevation according to the markings on the GPS. The process for coax engagements is lasing the target, remembering the range, resetting the range, and then manually super elevating the gun to the correct height in relation to the coax markings on the GPS. Another thing for the gunner to be aware of is the stabilization system. The system will fail if it is run constantly for an hour or more. Thankfully, in Steel Beasts, the AI will automatically manage this. The system will also fail if the engine is off for an extended period of time. Another consideration is that the AI will turn off the stabilization when in or near woods, which is a good idea to do in real life to avoid damaging the main gun by smacking it against a tree. Turn the autoloader into the automatic position, and then turn the hydraulics on. Beyond armor, the main advantage of the T-72B from previous versions is that it has a more advanced fire control system. In previous versions of the T-72, lead is done by Kentucky windage. In the T-72B, the ballistic computer is able to inform the gunner of the amount of lead he is to use. To use this feature, track the target that you intend to engage, laze it, and hold down the laze button. As you laze, the ballistic computer will give a positive or negative number. This number corresponds to the amount of tick marks that the gunner must offset the aim point by. Offset to the correct point and then fire the main gun. Assuming that you track the target smoothly, the round should impact at the offset aim point. The other position in the vehicle that has some complexity is the commander's position. As what one would expect, the TC's position in the T-72 is far less advanced and capable than the commander's positions in Western armor of the same vintage. That said, there are some things that the commander can do. The commander can do two things. The first of these is override the gunner's commands and lay the gun on a target that the commander has spotted. This is done via pressing and holding the period key. It's hardly smooth and is rather janky, but you take what you can get with the T-72. The other is that the T-72 has an NSVT heavy machine gun mounted on the commander's cupola. As the site suggests, the machine gun is intended more for defense against aircraft than for shooting at ground targets. However, it is capable of engaging infantry, trucks, and lightly armed vehicles. That said, it should be used while stationary. The T-72 has some issues with survivability. One of the issues is related to the spar liner that the T-72 uses. Due to the T-72's intended function, that being as an assault tank on a battlefield irradiated by neutron bombs, spar was of secondary concern to the effects of radiation on the crew. As such, the spar liner was made of lead, which is less than ideal for dealing with spar, but quite effective for dealing with radiation. Another issue being the location of stored ammunition. The T-72 has its ready ammunition in a carousel that is low in the hull. This limits the risks of the ammunition being intersected by a penetrating projectile like a KE round or a heat jet. However, the vehicle can also have ammunition that is stored throughout the turret, which is in areas that are far more likely to suffer penetrations. As with reality, in Steel Beasts, you can reduce this risk of a catastrophic ammunition explosion by removing ammunition from the stored supply. The T-72 is one of the iconic vehicles of its age, and is one of the more successful designs of the Cold War given the quantities of the vehicle that have been made and exported across the globe. It still sees combat and is likely to be in the inventories of various countries for many decades to come, this despite it being designed for a completely different environment than what it is currently expected to fight in.